As we know, students in our schools, be they public or private, spend an enormous amount of time with their peers, with their teachers.
Everyone who has grown up understands what bullying is about, and having been in school and been bullied. But we live in a different time now.
Remember the old time bullying and you think, oh, it's no big deal. It's worse. They have escalated into some very serious harassment.
Children don't have that opportunity to have that childhood. They are thrust into an adult world really quick.
Suicide is up, beatings are up, and there are quite a few records of deaths.
No matter how old you are, no matter how many years you look back, you always remember the school bully. You always remember how horrible, how isolated, how terrified you felt. It's hard enough being a kid as is. It's hard enough being a teenager, trying to come into yourself, trying to emerge from being an adult, a child into being an adult, and to have the additional stigma of having some label thrust upon you, whatever that might be, of having kids prey upon you where you go to bed terrified at night. You go through your entire day, all of your energies are focused on just sustaining yourself, just making it through another day. No child should ever have to feel marginalized. No child should ever have to feel conspicuous for whatever reason.
When I was 16, I was struggling with my sexual orientation. As a kid growing up, I was bullied for being a dork, a nerd, a guy who loved the library too much, being a metal mouth, because I had every imaginable orthodontic work done in my mouth possible. So by the time I turned 16, I was being perceived to be gay, and myself was dealing with it internally. I wasn't out. It was nothing new, but it was a lot worse than ever before. And every day I regretted going to school. I actually dealt with depression and an attempt at suicide.
When I was a kid, once you were home, you were safe. And that's not necessarily the case anymore because everybody's wired in. They come home and they're on their computer and there's like all these chat rooms and they can't get away from it.
Children are discriminated against and bullied. I mean, we've heard about because you don't wear the right clothes. If English is your second language, if you're too fat, if you're too thin, how you look, how you dress, and heaven forbid add on to that you're gay or even transgender.
And it's not just the LGBT kids that are bullied.
I mean, Safe Schools is not really just about LGBT kids, it's about all kids.
Students of color, students living with disabilities, students who look, quote, weird.
And the whole notion that we make it so simple in some instances for children to be children and do horrific things to other children without consequences is abhorrent.
We force kids to go to school till about somewhere between 16 or 18. So we do have some sort of obligation to make them safe because legally they have to go there. And especially public schools because they're public places. So I think we should really be looking at what are the issues that are there and how do we make those places safe. And if people from the LGBT community are saying that they have issues, then obviously there's work that needs to be done to make them safe.
As a psychotherapist who has worked with gay and lesbian teachers in the school system, the thing that I hear from the teachers that are gay and lesbians, many school systems, it's extremely dangerous to be a teacher who's out in a school district because the vast majority of school districts are small town.
I've had to talk with teachers who are brokenhearted that they have these students in their classes, but their hands are tied in that they don't have clear guidelines. They've never been trained to teach them how to deal with these situations when they arise in their classroom.
An anti-bullying bill in this state must be adopted by the legislature and assigned by the governor so that each child in our schools, public or private, and private schools have got to be included somehow, perhaps further down the road, is safe and supported in its school life.
Many kids don't necessarily even have a safe space in their own home.
There's no safe place anymore for them.
In the legislation where they're trying to create safe schools for students, it would also be helpful because it would create safe schools for teachers. And if we could support the students and support the teachers to support the students, there really are two groups there in every school system that would really benefit.
Our hope is in our future. Adults come from children. If we stop it in that school, that's the way to end hate crimes.
We shouldn't allow the kids to set the tone. We should say that as adults, we want this to be a safe space for the kids, and we're going to do certain things to make that happen.
You know, if I worked in corporate America and did some of the things that these kids do in high school, I would be fired. But yet we don't have these things in place for our children while they're in school. I think there's something wrong with that picture.
You know, if we have protections, if we can protect the LGBT kids, if we can protect the trans kids, if we're protecting them, then we're going to be able to protect everybody else.
And what they can give back to our community, I mean, we're protecting our future by having safe schools and protecting against bullying. Because that child who is being called fat, ugly, gay today could be your next Barack Obama.
During those adolescent years, the emotional development in terms of a sense of self is so vulnerable, and even one person being loving and accepting to that student can really save that student's life.
They have to go to school. It's a public place. Figure out what we have to do to make it a welcome and safe space.
Some bills that they talk about that are anti-bullying, but they have no teeth to it. They don't have enumeration. They don't have a community-wide task force.
How many states have passed anti-bullying legislation? And the fact that Michigan has been so reluctant for mundane reasons, it's because of minutia, it's because of language.
It isn't about adults, and it is about the kids that are getting hurt, and we have to stop it.
We can't protect our children from the way the world is changing, but what we can do is protect them so that they can have an education in a safe space where they can find who they are and become who they are.